words have gotten all distorted. But what they meant to say was not reported. Before the torches come to town, we gonna burn this fort down.
Welcome back with those eyes and ears and the people that are interested in podcasts. We are FORTitude. I have some good news and I have some bad news. The bad news is my regular partner, Britton Payne, has been stricken with the COVID-19 virus. He's currently in quarantine, is likely leaving a scene reminiscent of The Beautiful Mind. You might have seen that one.
Yes.
He complains incessantly and probably talks to himself all day long. He's going to survive, though. He will return to the FORTitude desk next week, hopefully. The good news is that we have scoured the planet, interviewed hundreds of people, scrutinized each one, and finally drug tested the finalist. And one man made it through the FORTitude interview process. His resume lists many accomplishments, including hosting a wide variety of popular morning shows and shows, not just morning, but currently at WPAP 820, along with acting as the play-by-play announcer for the TCU Horned Frogs. We have not been able to verify all this as our research department is out with COVID, but he does sound legit. So welcome to the show, Mr. Brian Estridge.
Have you been able to confirm, has Britton grown any more hair since COVID?
It's likely he's lost some pigment to his skin and more hair.
Oh, my.
I know. It's difficult,
okay.
but...
Well, tell Casper I hope he feels better.
I will tell him. By the way, congrats on 30 years in broadcasting, my friend.
Yes, how about that?
Well done. Yes, sir. Yeah. A little guy from Kershaw,
little guy,
South Carolina.
Yeah. No longer a little guy.
Nice work. Before we get to our guest, Brian, I want to make a couple mentions of some noteworthy news stories. The Texas Wesley football program, I don't know if you follow those guys, but they are on a roll. Coach Joe Prudhomme, they defeated number 15 ranked Arizona Christian Firestorm recently. They were ranked 15 in the country at the time, but Joe Prudhomme's program at Wesleyan is doing really well. They're undefeated.
You talk about a guy who gets a lot done without a lot.
Oh, Lord. These poor guys, no locker room, no practice field to speak of. They play at Farrington Field for home games, so they have a much higher uphill challenge than, say, the TCU Horned Frogs, but they do well. So the TCU Lady Horned Frog, a soccer team, they had their first defeat last night. Today is September 16th. Mm-hmm. They had their first defeat to Pepperdine 1-0 last night. But they were ranked number 5th in the nation prior to that. So they're still doing quite well, but their first loss comes last night.
Today's the 17th.
17th. So let's put that yesterday at the 16th. Does that math check out with you?
Got you.
The Horned Frog football team is obviously back in action. We're 2 games in, undefeated. Some tests are coming up. SMU's in a week. So we'll see about that. My co-host, Brian Estridge, he should be the voice of the Frogs.
Right. You can hear the game on WBAP.
WBAP 820, right. So Don't watch the game. Listen to the game.
There you go.
The 4th Symphony Orchestra season is back in session. If you care for that sort of thing, please give them a listen. They're doing really good things over there. A friend of the show, Mr. Tim Locke, tells me the State Fair of Texas is back in action. I don't know if you care about the State.
I do love the State Fair of Texas.
Yes, it's a very interesting, scary place to be sometimes.
Well, I have to go see Tiny Tim, the world's smallest horse, once a year.
Right. Did you go see Eric Clapton last week in concert?
At the State Fair of Texas?
No, at Dickies Arena.
Oh, no, I didn't make that.
Yeah, so we moved on from the State Fair. We're now on to bigger things.
No, was it a good show?
I don't know. I just asked.
Oh, no, I wish I would have been there. Yeah.
I could imagine it wasn't bad. No, the guy's incredible.
Yeah.
We lost a comedic Norm MacDonald last week, so that was kind of a sad one. He had a 9-year private cancer battle that no one really knew about.
Has a great joke about a moth going to see a doctor.
Okay.
Have you ever heard this joke? It's a long joke. It's like 4 minutes long. And the guy's going through all the things that are ailing him and things. The moth is talking to the doctor. And finally, the doctor says, well, why did you come see me? And the moth says, well, the light was on.
Fantastic. And you know why he's sitting in this chair, folks. A little shout out to my partner's son, Pearson Payne, had a little procedure a few days ago. Get well soon, pal. And lastly, Brian, we lost a bit of a icon in town. Ed Schultz passed away yesterday, the September 16th. He was the president and CEO of Alcon Labs for 25 years, and he was about one of the most passionate basketball fans that TCU ever had for over 50 years.
Do you know his story? Like his background?
Not particularly well.
I'm going to get a little bit of this wrong, so allow me some freedom here. But orphaned at the age of 10, grew up in an orphanage, went to the University of Cincinnati, played 3 sports, was a great athlete, graduated from Cincinnati. The day that he walked across the stage, the president of Cincinnati said, "So what are you going to do now, Schulmeyer?" And he said, "I'm going to Harvard." And he did. He went to Harvard. His first job out of Harvard was at Alcon. And he worked himself up to CEO.
Wow, from the ground
You
up.
talk about a self-made man. Pretty amazing. And a very philanthropic, giving individual, yes.
Well,
Ed
the city
Schultz.
of Fort Worth and the community of at TCU is sad to learn of his passing yesterday. So
No question.
thanks, Ed, for all you did for the city and school. So speaking of great people, we have one with us today, Brian, a lady by the name of Victoria Wise. She's done some cool stuff. You ready to get into her story?
I am. I wonder if it's making Victoria as uncomfortable as it's making me that the chair that I'm sitting is slowly moving down.
I have some jokes in there, but I think I'll refrain because I don't want you to get
Did
mad
you do
at
this
me.
on purpose?
I did no such thing. That might be the special chair. Yes.
It might, I'm going to stand up.
Budget cuts.
It might
Right,
be,
right.
yes.
Well, Victoria, sorry if you had to endure that long introduction, but thank you very much for being here. We're honored to have you in studio with us today.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
So Victoria is the epitome of entrepreneur, Brian. She's done lots of things, and we're going to talk about some of these things. First off, she's well-traveled. She's been to 25 countries. Is there more than 25 now?
Probably a few more.
A few more than that?
Wow.
It's considerably more than most folks. You have 4 children, correct?
I do.
How old are these kids nowadays?
I have a 14-year-old boy, a 12-year-old girl, and twin boys that are 10. So I had a 3.5-year-old, 18-month-old, and twin newborns, and it's not a recommended birth plan.
Well done for that,
Thank
for
you.
sure. So
I didn't do that alone. So
Brian's fixing his chair. Go ahead,
That's
Brian.
okay. Just keep talking.
Okay. Well, we can talk about Victoria's accomplishments before we get to the major issues that she's accomplished. She's one of the most influential people in Fort Worth by the Fort Worth Inc. 3 years running. That's a big deal. She started in 2011, and if I'm getting any of this incorrectly, please stop me. But she started the jewelry nut auction as well as Tanglewood Moms at the same time, basically, right?
I did.
One of them, the jewelry nut auction, she sold not too long after forming it because it reached a certain level, $1.5 million of sales, and somebody came knocking, and you made the economic decision to sell it. Then Tanglewood Moms caught fire a few years later. Brian, do you use Tanglewood Moms?
I do, as my search engine.
It is.
Yes.
That's the beauty of this whole matter is Tanglewood Moms is a lot of things to a lot of people, but let's just call it what it really is. It's a search engine for people that want to things, almost anything you could imagine. People go there for about every issue they could ever have. And then even negative, positive, everything that covers, which is incredible. So let's start there.
Yeah.
Tanglewood Moms.
Well, I was just at lunch today with someone who was looking to join us as a sponsor, but they mentioned that it's breaking news in Tanglewood Moms. We have 20,000 members, and people are on the ground. They know what's going on before it's on the news, certainly before it's in any newspaper. And that's where the reporters are. They're getting information from our members. So, I mean, it's really, you say it's search, but it's also like as it's happening.
How do you, I guess for lack of a better word, edit it? Like how, you know what I'm saying? Or is it all organic to the point where you say, you know what, this is part of the community. We just let it happen.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of things to know before, people are like, who's Victoria? What's Tanglewood Moms? I'm not a mom. You mentioned searching and knowing about it, but number one, you don't have to live in Tanglewood. Number two, you don't have to be a mom. It's open to women in Fort Worth. And so that is the group, the Facebook group, 20,000 members. We have a public Facebook page, and then we have a website by the same name. And so you can use, these 3 different channels. But as far as moderating, there are certain rules. We have 10 rules. And some of them are when something becomes a hot button topic, we just say you can't talk about this here. And we rely on our members a lot of times to flag those comments, and we just hit delete and say, you know what, these are your neighbors. This is supposed to be a helpful community. We really want this to be a positive, uplifting space. There's plenty of places on the internet to go and, air your grievances. It's just not going to be here.
How often do you run into problems like that? I'm sure the masks and the pandemic it had plenty of those types of scenarios.
The protests.
Is this a regular occurrence nowadays that you've gotten to be so big?
So, I mean, maybe weekly or a couple times a month. It's not every day. And usually it's people start policing each other and it regulates itself. And so it's a little, it can be unwieldy, but I think people get it. And so, yeah, it's not a huge problem.
If it's a fair question, what's the craziest thing that's happened on Tanglewood Moms? You're
My
smiling.
lawyer would say I can't discuss that. I think everybody knows there's a hashtag. That's all I can say.
Okay,
Right.
fair enough.
But there's been so many positives to come out of it. I mean, there's got to be got to be one or two stories where Tanglewood Moms has made a difference.
Right.
Like, did any of those stand out?
Yeah, for sure. Someone told me about, they said, you do know somebody bought somebody a house. There was a person in need. Someone purchased somebody a house because of Tanglewood Moms. So that's where I have to look at, like, there's all these crazy things that happen. And that, that drama there, as my lawyer would also say, is part of the fun of being a part of it. You get to see all of the drama. But I have to think that these positive things that happen in the group outweighs the kind of bickering or silliness that may happen. So somebody buying somebody a house was one thing. I mean, there's certainly a lot of nonprofits that are a part of it, and last year it hit them hard, and so we were a great place to for those people to be seen.
How do you overcome the thinking that someone says, "Oh, that's just gossip. I'm not going there just because it's just gossip"? How do you overcome that?
Oh gosh, more than that, it's more like misinformation these days than gossip. If there's somebody, we certainly don't allow any business bashing or individuals to be harmed in that way. But more, it's just like there's just so much information out there on the internet, and a lot of that gets shared. And so then I have to be, the judge and jury and decide what stays and what goes.
And one thing that's really cool about Tanglewood Moms is you and your staff, almost except for one or two people, are all female. And that's really a unique thing and part of your design, correct?
Yes. And we did. So the magazine started publishing in 2017. I'm going to back up. 2011 is when that Facebook group started, as you mentioned. 2015 is when the digital side started, the website, and how we started making it into a business. And then in 2017, the magazine. And so that's when we really started paying attention to our writers and their backgrounds and their ethnicity and race and, just socioeconomic level. We wanted to have a wide range of voices. So that included male and female. There are a few writers in the group, Eddie Brown, Lyle Brooks, my husband, and I guess, the rest are all female.
Brian mentioned something with you a second ago that triggered a thought, but all these people throwing out ideas at Tanglewood Moms all the time. How does that monitor? How do people catch the bad and get rid of it quickly? Are you looking at it all the time?
I don't think I am.
I think they do. And several friends have mentioned that. How do you catch the bad before it gets out of hand?
I don't always, it's not a perfect solution. I might at some point hire someone to moderate it 24/7. But usually if it's something that's super out of hand, I'm getting a text message from somebody rather than me having to open up Facebook and see that there's something out of hand. So sometimes things go for a little bit, usually no more than an hour, but that's
and it's 20,000 members currently, right?
Right.
What is the price of admission?
Zero. Yeah. That we, monetize through sponsorships on our blog and magazine.
Has anyone ever changed your mind?
To charge membership?
No. On an issue where you've said, you know what, I'm taking that down. That doesn't need to be up there. And have they ever reached out to you and said, hey, here's my thinking on this, or here's my side of it, or, here's some information I'd like to share with you, to where you've said, you know what, I haven't thought of it like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have that happen a lot because I'll hear, but really I get pinned into, oh, you're politically this way because you would have reacted this way. Or at the same token, the same argument,
you're the opposite.
Too conservative. So I couldn't possibly be both on every issue. I certainly think that I do kind of have ideas and values on both sides. But I definitely am, seen to be, oh, you're handling this wrong, or I wouldn't have done it this way. But I would absolutely listen to somebody's side and see, okay, I didn't see it that way. I can see how that might be wrong.
And then maybe say, removed. Okay, then that we can talk about that, or that could be on here.
Yeah, or even tell the story. If it's something that needs a wider audience to read, it may be something that we publish.
When was the aha moment for you in Tanglewood, regard to Tanglewood Moms, when you thought to yourself, I really have something here that's catching fire and people are going here and loving it? Did you have one of those moments?
So in 2011, I started a business called Jewelry Net Auctions with a partner. And at the same time, we started the Facebook group. And people don't know this, as a marketing play. We knew that at some point we would need to market our business locally, although it was sold nationally. The products were sold nationally. And initially invited, friends in our neighborhood. But then that same day we launched it, it was friends out in other neighborhoods wanting to join. And so that's why that name is a little bit of a misnomer and we allow anybody in. But from 2011 to 2014, we were on a rocket ship with that business. And we were recognized by Facebook and put on their SMB Council, their inaugural year of it. They had it for 5 years. And so we helped Facebook develop ad products for other businesses. And so how we transact on Facebook today is we were one of 3 businesses testing that. We'd already developed the tools ourselves. We've been transacting on Facebook for 3 years, and they wanted to know, how did you do it? What tools does an individual, like a small business, need to be able to sell on Facebook? And we built software. It was very costly endeavor, but the business was still doing well. We were ready to exit. We sold the company. And then in 2015, I had soft launched one jewelry business that I ended up having to put away. But I knew as an entrepreneur, I didn't want to have to take a job. I just needed to start something that was going to be able to, make money right away. And I had 2,300 members in this Tanglewood Moms Facebook group. And I just had the idea, launch a website and put together a marketing package for small business. I was also running a social media marketing boutique firm, just handling 3 different clients. One was a national client, one was a regional client, one was a local client. And we were seeing great results for them using Facebook to manage their social media. And in 2015, you talk to a business and they were like, well, why do I need this? I can just hire a college intern to do this. I don't need this handled professionally. But some of them, took us on and we were able to grow. So in 2015, I knew I needed to show myself as a positive example of how it works if somebody takes over your social media. And so I grew my own. I grew the Instagram account to 10,000 as fast as I could. Started an email campaign that goes out. It initially was once a week. Now it's twice a week. And the Facebook page to accompany the group so that it could be a public facing side.
So you obviously have developed a strategy, a winning strategy that's worked. Do other companies, I'm assuming other folks have come to you for advice on how to pull this off. Do you have any idea as to how many other businesses you've influenced?
Well, with Jewelry Net, we were the first to launch in that vertical. So it existed in children's wear, this type of comment selling. But then when we launched with jewelry and accessories and then clothing, we had our copycats after month 1. Dallas ones started popping up, then other ones all over the country. And so we kind of started this trend of people getting online at 7 or 8 p.m. and shopping from their phone by hitting comment, right, by commenting sold in their email address or PayPal. So yeah, I know that was certainly an influential business play. Like we saw people immediately copycat. A little bit here locally, there was somebody that attempted to do exactly what we were doing and it didn't work out for them. I think Tanglewood Moms, I guess because we had already had that traction in that brand recognition, that this is where people chose to interact as a reader or audience member. And then also for businesses to want to align with this because we did, much like Angie's List, have this sort of seal of approval. If Tanglewood Moms are using them, then I trust it.
Mm-hmm. Good job crushing out the local competition. Let me tell us how that works one day off air.
I'm kidding.
For entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, and even for female entrepreneurs, what kind of advice could you give people in that realm? Because you've had successes. What could you tell people to give them a little more encouragement?
I think it's something you're sort of born with. I started my first business in high school, and then in college.
What was the first business?
Always in jewelry. Most of my career has been in jewelry. I designed and produced jewelry that I sold to the 5-state area it was the fashion market in Dallas. And then I went to work for a company and learned design and sourcing, that we had production in Asia. So I learned kind of the corporate side of it. And then I started a children's wear line. And then I started Jewelry Nut. So I'd had several wins and losses. And really, I guess the connecting thread is marketing and trend spotting, knowing what might work before seeing somebody else's doing it, just doing it first, really. So as far as advice, I think you kind of just you have to have that work ethic and not afraid to take risks. You just do it before you're ready. Do it before you've got the website. Just launch it.
There you go.
And, your customers will find you. You'll know pretty quick if it works or not.
We're smiling because, you're getting advice for our fledgling podcast here. And like we don't know what we're doing half the time, but this is all good to hear. So
you're preaching to the choir. In other words, JW mentioned early on that your travels, your worldly travels, 5 continents, 30 countries, whatever it is. How much of that has that been driven by work, or has it been driven by pleasure? And how much has it influenced your work?
I don't think a lot of people know this, but I'm from South America. I was born there. All my family's from there. My grandfather was a German Jew that escaped before the war. So I've always been told, but you don't look Ecuadorian. And I don't, but I have a lot of, family there, and traveled there every other year to see them growing up. But I grew up in Oklahoma, and my family just loves to travel. So they always took us places. And when
you're like Oakladorian. That's really what it is.
Texas doesn't claim me. I know
That's
that.
Right.
They're like, no, sorry, you're from Oklahoma. No, but when I was 13, there was an organization called People to People out of Spokane, Washington, and they had people from our high school. I was a freshman. Apply to be a candidate to go to the Soviet Union. It was the USSR at that time. That was 1989. So that was my first travel abroad without family. It was a school trip. We got briefed in Washington, D.C., what you can and can't do. When we got there, we certainly had our KGB person there, following us to all of the things. So that gave me a lot of independence, knowing I could do that.
So this is 89. So this is post Cold War.
No,
right?
This is the heart of Cold. I guess the wall came down.
The wall had come down after Ronald Reagan, right? 89.
No, the wall had not come down yet. I think that happened in 90s.
Perestroika was 91.
91. So that's okay.
It was there was, the bread lines and
really still
there was, you could trade Levi's jeans on the black market, stuff like that. That's what I remember as a 13-year-old. But it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. I knew I have always had the travel bug. And then in college, I went on semester at sea. So I think 13 of those countries were from that experience. And you were on a ship that goes around the world, and we were on the Eastern trip.
How did your folks send you away at 13 to Russia? Like if my 14-year-old came to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Russia for a year," I'm like, no, you're not.
Perhaps she's not as kind and generous as she seems.
Maybe. Yeah, right.
It wasn't a whole year. It was just a month.
Okay.
So it wasn't too long. We had our chaperones from the school. We had teachers from the school that attended. And then we were 25 kids from Duncan, Oklahoma, but we went with 25 other schools. So we were a large group in a caravan of buses, and it was safe. We weren't worried.
College?
Yeah. TCU.
TCU. Oh, right.
RTVF major, film studies. My
Very
parents
nice.
would always joke, well, what are you going to do with that?
Study film.
Yeah. Just going to watch movies, Mom and Dad.
You could do what you're doing now successfully, or do what we're doing here, and maybe just kind of barely get by.
Yeah.
Well, I think for us, production classes are super beneficial in the age of social media, that you can't, if you have any sort of background in that, how to tell a story visually. It did help me in my businesses. So yeah, it did. TCU, I loved, and I've always said if I could go back, I'd do it all over again. Wouldn't change a thing.
Nice. Yeah. What's the next step for Tanglewood Moms?
That's a good question too, because I keep having these, I will try anything and I have to stop myself sometimes. I've had a goal to launch in another city. Makes a lot of sense to launch in Dallas because we have clients that have locations in both cities, but I haven't done it yet. I'm just, Fort Worth is just booming and bursting at the seams. There's so much business here. It doesn't make sense. I feel like I need to be a better advocate for my sponsors than try to, start from scratch and do it somewhere else.
What's the negative to it? Is there a negative for you? Like, do you look on it and you go, man, all of it is so good, but.
Yeah, the business is fantastic. I will say we did see a little dip with COVID, but I've never been, and that sounds like I'm really tooting my own horn here, like more successful. Like this is, I've really worked hard at this and it's paid off. So I'm really proud of that. The downside is, social media can be a complete, it can tear you down and it's hard. I listened to the Armchair Expert podcast. I don't know if you guys have listened to that or know about it, but they had a gentleman named Yuval Harari, and he's a historian and also philosopher. And he's talking about how what's going on now is that the humans are hackable. You can go down the rabbit holes of social media and what you perceive to be actual media telling you something about that, what's happening, and you start believing it and you start forming new values and opinions. And it's a lot of where this division is happening. And so I just went off that hamster wheel. I don't want to be an active participant. AI is not perfect and they make mistakes. These tech companies make mistakes. And it's like, do I want my kids to be a slave to this? I feel like a slave to it a lot of times. Even being like a complete Facebook advocate, I still serve on a leadership group for the company. And I love it. I love that they enable small business to launch without any investment. Jewelry Nut was launched with $1,000 and Tanglewood Moms was $100. I bought a WordPress template and I built the website myself. Like
that's incredible.
You don't have to have a lot of money to be in business and do well. So that's the drawback is right now you just kind of feel a little bit of a slave to that.
Sure. So we haven't touched much on Madeworthy, the magazine, but many of our listeners, especially our 2, 3, 4 moms, definitely. But we get the Madeworthy in the mail. How did this happen, and what's that been like? So when I launched the website Tanglewood Moms, and I mentioned I had one local sponsor. He's a real estate agent, and I was working for him, managing all of his marketing, not just his social media. And I learned the magazine business as an advertiser. I saw rates, I saw distribution, I saw how they worked. And I thought, I'm doing this exact same thing digitally. I see what you're making by doing print. Now, granted, there's a much higher cost in developing a magazine, but I thought I can do this. I can launch a magazine. I've got my base of clients. And so I went to Pavlov was my first one, with a blank sheet of paper that looked like what the magazine looks like, just blank pages, and a pitch on an iPad, and said, "This is what I want to do." And he was like, "I'm in." So that was my first meeting. That was my first yes. And I just went from client to client saying, "This is my vision. This is what I want to do." And what I found was there was a need in the market in publishing for people writing stories that people like me are interested in. Moms, young to middle age, and just to know more of Fort Worth than maybe just 109 or 107, just learn about Fort Worth and these great people in it. So that is how it worked. I went to my editor, I went to my husband, I want to start a magazine. They both thought I was nuts for wanting to do it. And because print is dead, I was leading social media for people. I was the one also saying this, but I saw how it could work. And so far we're in our 4th year of publishing and doing well.
Wow.
Do you want to tell her about your idea for a publication called Tanglewood Dads?
Yeah.
Or should we talk about that off
But
air?
it's all photos.
It would be,
yeah.
It would be a winner. Men have requested since the day we launched to be a part of this.
Really?
And I keep saying, we'll go start a Tanglewood Dads.
Yeah.
Go do it. So far, no one's done it, but I think it would work.
Yeah. So what's the subscriber base for Madeworthy?
Well, there's like 40,000 readership. We print 10,000 copies, and it goes 75% of those go to homes, and the rest of them go to Central Market and Whole Foods on Bryan Irvin, just right across the street here. Yeah.
But steady growth ever since initiation.
Steady growth with advertisers. We have maintained our same publishing, numbers, and the digital platforms keep growing. I've never raised prices in our magazine, but we just got an email from our printer saying, pretty big increase. So this will be.
So are we announcing on the show a subscriber increase?
An advertiser increase.
Because it comes for free. We use the same model like 360 West, where, if you meet a certain criteria, my criteria is not financially based. It's more geographic and stage of life. And if you have kids, that's who gets it. But I may have to, it's the worst having to raise prices.
How did the pandemic treat you last couple of years?
Yeah.
Anything different in your life because of?
I got COVID in March of 2020, and I wasn't a severe case. I never had to be hospitalized. I did have to get on oxygen, and I have been a COVID long hauler for 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And I just there's this doctor out of Stanford. And I want to say, I'm glad you brought it up because I do want to mention this to readers because not everybody knows. And I just found out about it. It's called covidlonghaulers.com. And it's a doctor out of Stanford. He developed the test to screen for cytokines, raised, elevated markers.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the test. I just got it back this week. And I have 4 super high things that they screen for. And I'm waiting for my appointment and not Google it because I don't want to get scared.
Yeah,
how long do I have to live, doc? Not really, but hopefully there's some treatment plan for people like us that will really help end this because it's been a real struggle.
Is it mainly fatigue?
I do have some fatigue. I have a lot of pain, and I developed a mast cell disorder, which is like really bad allergies.
Right.
Your tongue and lips swell in your face and your throat. And so that can cause anaphylaxis. And so it's kind of a bummer. But yeah, as far as the business, COVID did affect us for that May-June issue when all the businesses were having to close and not open doors. We just did a much smaller publication. It's still printed, but we saw a dip there. We did get some relief from the Fort Worth, the Preserving the Fort grant. That was awesome. I saw other I think it was Jonathan Morris was posting about apply for this. This is free money. And so we got a little relief there. But yeah, not terrible. This year's been great.
I would tell you my regular partner, Britton, suffers from some sort of neuroses and irritability. I thought it would be a part of the long haul syndrome, but yeah, he's just getting over it today, in fact. So this is a longer term problem. So we'll go on a different tangent with that one someday. First off, we appreciate you being here very, very, very much. So proud of your success. You've done a lot of good things for a lot of people in this town. Before you go, beside your familiar affairs, your kids, your husband, what's the best day of your whole life?
Ooh, pretend like this is my best day of my life.
No, what is your best
day
day
that I've ever had?
Yep.
You were just going to plan your best day,
I was
right?
like, what can I do?
I was going to say.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's actually a good way to take that, but.
Yeah. So, gosh, that's a question I've never been asked. I don't have a answer for what has been the best day of my life. I guess I will say just being so thankful for the family that I have. So it's not just a day, but I didn't plan on having 4 kids. I didn't.
See, she's going family, Brian. She's breaking the rules.
Oh, shoot.
That's okay. It's really hard by design. It's
certainly never been because of any sort of financial or award or anything like that, or even graduating, that's all hard work. But I feel like family is God-given and it's super special. And
it is.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say when you put your feet on the ground after that tour around the world on a boat.
You know what's funny about that is you get off the ship after the first port, it was the Bahamas to Venezuela. Mm-hmm. And the whole world
is swaying.
Moves side to side.
Yes.
And then the next port was Brazil, Salvador de Bahia. And you get out and it's totally fine. You're solid. And so it's getting your sea legs. And I had no idea that was a thing.
So do you think your sea legs are permanent now? Once you get them, do you have them? I've often wondered that.
I don't know. But I used to get car sick all the time as a kid. But after that trip, never again.
So maybe they're permanent.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Maybe so. Well, in 2018, I forgot to mention, in 2018, you were honored by the Safe Haven of Tarrant County with the Legacy of Woman Award. Congratulations. That's well-deserved. That's a pretty cool deal. We've enjoyed you on the show. Thank you for joining us. Pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great being here and meeting you and just getting on a real deal podcast with all this fancy equipment.
Did it make you at all uncomfortable that this chair continues to move down?
I'm worried about
It
you.
made me uncomfortable.
Don't make the obvious
I'm
joke,
so glad
Victoria.
I wasn't in that chair
Exactly.
myself.
Yes,
You took one for the team.
I did.
Well, thanks, Victoria. Appreciate you.